Boom, start jarring transition now. Hey, everybody. We are live. Welcome to another episode of Guest Quest, the TTRPG talk show brought to you by the Gimme to Loot podcast, the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition actual play podcast. That's still a little bit surprised that people agree to talk to him. We are joined this week by a Mr. Todd Stashwick, a guest whose resume is so dense it literally would take the entire stream to read through it. So,
but please start.
Well, we're going to save it for Patreon content. Our patron supporters have been clamoring to get
some sweet content.
Well, look, so our patron supporters have been clamoring for Jamie, who's unfortunately not here tonight, to fold laundry on an hour-long stream. They've got some real specific kinks, and we service those kinks. And we were like, what do we do?
Let me sketch it.
Do while he's folding the laundry and stumbling across your IMDb list. It's like, okay, 1, he's got to dress up like a Zelda character. 2, he's got to fold the laundry. 3, he's got to hit 100% of Stashwick's acting credits. And that is worth at least $5 a month. So
I'll have to feed laundry.
Let's get it real quick. Let's hit Todd's bio. Todd Stashwick is an actor and writer, a Chicago native. He's an alumnus of the famed Second City Comedy Theater. As an actor, he's known for his role at Deacon on the Syfy shows 12 Monkeys and Dale Malloy on the FX drama The Riches. Other notable roles include Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Heroes, Supernatural, The Originals, and Gotham, and the live-action Kim Possible as Dr. Drakken on Disney+.
Nice.
He recently completed co-writing a video game script for Square Ennix. You've heard of them before, I bet. Titled Forspoken. That'll be due out in the spring. And he's currently working with a group of writers for an upcoming Marvel game with Skydance New Media. Todd continues to develop television, film, and comic book properties because we don't have enough Renaissance man these days anymore, and we needed another one. Todd is a longtime RPG enthusiast. He has been active in the Dungeons and Dragons community where he's DM'd and played in charity streams. He's guest DM'd for Dungeon Run. Looks forward to running games this year at Garycon in Lake Geneva. He recently created his own merchandise store, Todd Stashwick's Nerd Circus, where he sells dice towers, t-shirts, glasses, and D&D inspired tiki cocktail book he created with a former Imagineer, Brendan Klayla. And let me recommend the Cantrip Sipper. Definitely gets the seal of approval. It is
nice.
Any cocktail that
I'm
has
a prop comic.
Anything that has garnished with a pat of butter immediately gets my vote. So it is a win. Todd lives in LA with his wife, his 2 children, and his too many pets, not pits. Mr. Todd Stashwick, thank you for joining us, sir. We absolutely
Thanks for having me.
So, you did Jasper's Game Week last year or the year before last?
I've done it. No, I did it. I've done it quite a few times. That's actually how I found out you were in the TTRPG community of all things. I did Jasper's last year, and I was like, oh, hey, look, it's the guy from 12 Monkeys. Oh, but look, that's Gail Simone. So I ended up doing the one with Gail Simone. So I'm sorry you lost. No, I get it. She wrote Batgirl. I did not.
Yeah, it was hard to pass up. It was her, Christina Ariel, and some other really cool people.
They're far prettier than me. It's not about looks though.
a little bit. I
didn't mean to turn it into a beauty contest.
Look, if there's any show that can prove it's not about looks,
it's them.
We are here. We are here for it.
Not here.
Speak for yourselves. I'm a handsome bear.
That's true.
There you are.
That's true. So right off the top, super impressive multi-class actor / Second City Improv alum / comic writer / video game writer / TTRPG writer /
slashing damage.
There you go. / Nerd Circuits ringmaster / DM / dad / director. Did we miss? Is there anything you don't do?
I'm not really good with the water polo.
Take some time.
I've tried. I'm just not very buoyant.
Did he call himself dense?
No, it's all that experience weighting him down. It's years of experience. So I absolutely want to dig into your work with Amy Hennig on video games, Mystic Libations, and of course the cool gear from Nerd Circus. But let's kind of start with the RPG history a little bit, if you don't mind. You're a first edition guy, right? That's where you kind of got into it.
Started playing in 78, 79. So yeah, I was that kid. I was that you watch Stranger Things and it looks like a documentary. Like I was that kid in the late 70s, early 80s in the basement in the Midwest, rolling dice with my friends and drawing all the pictures. And then so that was probably like 79 to 81. So from like 10 to 13, I was that kid. Started the D&D club in my junior high school. There's like a little black and white picture in the yearbook of me like being the boss, just sitting in the middle of a group of all preteens. And then like we would wheel in, like the AV department would wheel in a television so we could watch Hawk the Slayer.
Nice.
And that it consumed my life and it was introduced to me by my cousin Tori, may he rest in peace. And he was like my cool goatee having cousin who played guitar and sang Puff the Magic Dragon, smoked pot and played D&D. And I was just like, and so he introduced the game to me. I didn't play with him, but he was like the first person to ever utter the words Dungeons and Dragons to me. And that was probably around 78. And then 79, it just slowly caught on with all of us 10 and 11-year-olds. And then I played pretty hard for 3 years. And then Satanic Panic. And I was a boy who was going to a Bible camp, and they told me it was gateway to the devil. So I came back and gave away all my stuff that I have now paid an exorbitant amount on eBay to get all back. But yeah, like my dad had built me this box to keep all my stuff in. It wasn't my parents' pressure. They were like, go, gateway to hell, help yourself. And so I had all my stuff, and then I literally thought like all the iconography, it all added up. Like it's the devil's work. And I was an impressionable 13-year-old. And so I exited the scene. Just as the red box was coming in.
Yeah. So you went you went straight into AD&D, and then
I was the pink box, blue box, and then the box before that.
Yeah. So
like the Errol Otis cover boxes, the two iterations of that, and then the very first one, which is just the dragon looking forward. I wasn't a white box guy. I do have a white box, but I was not a white box guy. I came in after it was a little more mass marketed.
You can tell how much older we are by the confused look on Fate and Jazz's look. Like what are these different guys? The Errol Otis. I was so hardcore into the Errol Otis artwork in the older editions, man. That out of all the original D&D artists, man, his stuff was just unbelievable.
He's gonna be at Garycon this year.
Oh, no joke. I just found a bunch of his stuff, and I was like, oh, there's an Errol Otis appreciation group. I am in for it.
Yeah, his stuff is so a little cartooned. It's just really playful, but it really evocative. And this, it's all that old art is just the spirit of the event for me, because I was a young artist. I was a kid with a pencil, and all those old manuals and all of that. Well, they had hired a bunch of high school kids, so their level of art talent wasn't far beyond my own at that point. And so I was like, I can do this, because they were just sort of borrowing friends for TSR. And then, as they got a little more head of steam, they started getting a little more painterly and whatnot. But man, that old school stuff really plucks the nostalgia strings for me.
Yeah, one of the first books I
The Trampier.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like it's the Idol of Moloch tattoo on your arm. I was like, oh, that is that is legit first edition cred if you're going old school DMG on your arm. So
that says D&D to me.
Yeah, that cover was just so evocative, more so than the player's handbook. That cover, and they
that is the player's handbook.
My kids, no, I thought it was the DMG.
DMG has the Ifrit on it.
Oh, you're 100% right. You are
a nerd off
right.
where Turner loses.
No. Hey, credit where credit's due. He's absolutely right. My kids got me the dice tower with the Idol of Moloch.
With the Moloch?
Where you pop his head off and you drop it in.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
I was like, I've never been more proud of you kids.
Yeah, somebody, is it WizKids? Maybe WizKids. They're doing the Githyanki from the Fiend Folio and the
Oh, no
Ifrit
shit.
from the DMG.
Oh, that's
Full
awesome.
statues.
Wait, the Githyanki existed in early editions like that?
Oh, Githyanki's the cover of the Fiend Folio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is such a just an amazing piece of art. Like that's why, and I think that's the reason why that,
okay. I guess I have it right here.
that monster's been so enduring.
You guys are blowing my mind with nerddom right now, guys.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna let y'all know y'all
yeah,
just
that guy right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's and I guarantee you 100% that piece of art is why the Githyanki have been such an enduring character across all editions.
This book was essentially the British monster manual. So all of the editions, they were coming up in England, they were coming up with all of their own monsters to add in addition to, and so they produced a second book as a companion to the monster manual, and that's the Fiend Folio.
Now that makes way more sense.
Jeez. Yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah, the Deities and Demigods source book was probably the first one that I got my hands on that really captured my eye.
Which one?
The one that actually had the Cthulhu and the Elric in it before they had the slight copyright dispute. And that's the Cthulhu artwork in that will stick with you for a long time. It's like,
I have both editions. I have the Cthulhu one and then the other one, just because I have way too much downtime.
I'm going to say something. I've never felt more like a nerd hearing people talk about D&D because I am now the outsider. Right. So this is my first time playing D&D.
Welcome. So what I would recommend, if you have any like gift cards for Christmas, go to Amazon and grab the Art and Arcana book by Kyle Newman and John Peters and the Whitwers. Manganello does a thing. It's called Art and Arcana. You are going to love this book because it is the visual history of Dungeons and Dragons. So it will take you through all these artists that we're talking about. It will talk about all of this, but it's really gorgeously assembled, and it is just sort of a walking history museum as you go through, like the ads that they were putting out, the video game art. It's a beautifully assembled tome, and really as you are stepping into this, it's sort of like know your history. Like as you're stepping into this pastime, it's the resource I wish I had, and it was one of these things that Kyle Newman, he was like, wait a second. He went to look for this book. He was like, oh, somebody's had to have assembled all the art. Somebody's had to have done this. And he was like, they haven't? Well, I guess that's what we're doing now. So he put a team together and made the book himself, and it is gorgeous. There is a collector's edition which has in it a reproduction of the Tomb of Horrors convention pamphlet edition. So it's really I envy you on your journey because it's a really fun deep dive into this hobby that you're now podcasting. You'll really dig it, and you'll get a real appreciation for all of the old time artists. There's also a documentary called Eye of the Beholder on Amazon Prime, which talks about all the artists as well.
And as you dive into it, you'll see how that visual language carries forward and informs so much stuff down the road on the video game, comics, everything, because the guys that were drawing and doing that stuff when oh God, I'm older than those guys, but when you guys were younger, I hate to say when you guys were, because that makes me sound even older, but they all played D&D. I mean, there's nobody who didn't at some point. So the Satanic Panic knocks you out, and then you come back in later down the road.
Way later. So like I done and dusted. I was like, I'm done with Dungeons and Dragons. And then about, I want to say 15 years ago, I've told this story. 15 years ago, I was at an audition, and an actor by the name of Abraham Ben Ruby, is a really tall gentleman. He used to be on ER, lovely actor. I overhear him at the audition. He's like, "Oh, I'm really tired because I was up late playing Dungeons and Dragons," and my ear went, "What?" Because it's now like long before I'm no longer afraid that I'm falling through the gates of hell, and like I moved to Hollywood, and so I hear Abraham talking about. I'm like, "Did you just say Dungeons and Dragons?"
Out
And
loud,
he's like,
too.
"Yeah," and he's
Said it
like,
out loud.
He's like, he said it out loud, and he's like, "Yeah, me and Lillard and a bunch of other people are playing D&D," and I was like, "Huh." Well, I didn't have a group, and I wasn't going to insinuate myself into his group because you become cliquish, and not in a bad way, but like that becomes your tribe. Like that's
Right.
this is the group you play with, and these are your people, and you don't just sort of go, "Hey, put me on your table."
Right.
So it just got me like, what? D&D is like still a thing or a thing again? I had walked away from it truly for like 35 years ish. And I didn't think about it. I was like, went to college, got into my own pursuits, acting and whatnot. But that is when I went to eBay and started buying the books back. I'm like, I just kind of want them back as like totems of power. I just want to smell the pages and look at the art and just get that old feeling back, that sort of spark of imagination and that possibility, of just feeling young and feeling like a kid and feeling like that sense of adventure and wonder and all the things that I would get from watching the Rankin and Bass Hobbit or the Bakshi Lord of the Rings, and all of those feelings. It was just bringing it all back, and it was home. It was like a homecoming. But I still wasn't playing. So cut to 2015, 5th edition rolls around, and I'm like, that's enough. I want to play D&D. And my buddy Yuri Lowenthal, a VO artist extraordinaire. He's Peter Parker in the Spider-Man video games. And he's also in Arcane. If you haven't watched that yet, watch it.
Which is fantastic. Yeah.
That's ridiculously good.
Yeah.
So Yuri, literally, I post this on Facebook, and then an hour later, I shit you not, is a knock on my door, and Yuri's standing there with the starter kit going, "Me too. Me too. I want to play too." And he hands it to me. This was probably 2015. So he hands it to me, and I'm like, "That's it. We're gonna get a group together. We're gonna play D&D." And then I booked 12 Monkeys and went to Toronto. So that
when I get back.
So that got paused. Cut to late 2016. In the middle of season 2 to season 3, 12 Monkeys, Terry Metalis, who's the showrunner, writes me and he goes, "You need to get in prison yard shape for season 3." I'm like, "Dude, I'm 48." And then he's like telling me all the reasons why. He's like, "You're going to be doing a lot of stuff where your character gets, no spoilers, but I get captured and I have to get sort of shredded." And I'm like, how much time do I have?" And he's like, "You got about 4 or 5 months." I'm like, "That's doable." So hired the nutritionist, hired the trainer. So I go to my buddy Blair Herder, who is now an exec over at G4. He was co-owner of a gym, a nerd-themed gym. So I go to that gym. The trainer was this gentleman and lady. They are now husband and wife, Christy Black and David Nett. They are big D&D enthusiasts. In fact, when I was working out, they were also training Matt Mercer and Marisha. So I'm working out with these guys, and I'm like, "David, please, can I D&D?" he's like, when the show is done, because I was going into the final 2 seasons and we were shooting them back to back. He's like, "When you're done, we'll get a table together." So then the show ended late 2017, started having our session 0 late 2017. We started actually rolling dice 2018. So now I'm at a table. Now that same table going into our 5th year this year.
Nice.
Yeah. And then while I was doing that, my, at the time, 10-year-old daughter was like, "What's that, Dad? What you doing? Because that looks awesome." And I'm like, "Well, I guess I'm busting open the starter kit and going fan delver for you." And then so that's how I had to start DMing, was by necessity, because my daughter wanted to learn how to play D&D. And we grabbed there's nothing better. What's that old Greek myth where you put a bunch of rocks in your mouth to be able to speak clearly. Like if you can learn elocution with rocks in your mouth, when you spit them out, you'll speak really clear.
Huh.
I learned how to DM for a bunch of 10-year-olds.
But
So
I had a somewhat similar experience in that a buddy of mine from World of Warcraft days came to me and said, "Hey, I'm doing this D&D podcast. Do you want to jump on it in the second season?" And then literally 24 hours, my son came to me and said, "Dad, have you ever heard of Dungeons and Dragons?" And it was just like the clouds part and it's like, one, I've never been more proud of you. Two, yes, of course I have. Let's go. Let's go. And same thing, got the starter kit, got Fandelver, and the beauty of DMing for your kids is everything is new to them. They don't know all the tropes. It's like, you can bust out the riddle of the Sphinx, and they're like, "You're a genius. What is this man a beast that walks on all fours in the morning and two legs during the day and three in the evening? How do you come up with these mystical ideas, Dad?" I'm like,
yeah, I was lucky I didn't have a kid that goes, "I want to do MMA." I'd be lost. I would be absolutely lost.
Yeah. I'd be, if my daughter had come to me and like, "I really want to cheerlead," I'm like, "Well, okay.
I'll drive you to practice, and I will root you on." But yeah, so my son is an animator, and my daughter builds creatures and costumes and DMs now herself. So
right on.
So awesome. My work here is finished.
Right on. That is grade A. So you haven't messed with any of the second, third, fourth. It was straight from first to fifth.
I went from AD&D, basic and expert, right to 5e.
Wow. The transition is real.
That's a big jump in a lot of.
Well, 5e is so much easier.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely
your characters don't die.
Yeah, we just did an episode of our lore explainer on death in D&D and all the different ways that which edition was more deadly, and two technically.
Two is terribly deadly. Yeah.
So one, but one he has a table of different parasitic infections that you can. It's like, it's got stats for deadly urinary tract infections that gives you a really good idea.
Was it you that posted about the fact that like specters and whites would just knock you down a level or two?
Well, that's they can do that. Yeah, they can knock you down a level or two, and then if you died, I think in third edition, if you died, you lose a level. You just lost con, I think, in the earlier editions, but you had to do your percentage chance for resurrection survival. Like there was if you can find somebody to cast resurrection on you, and you don't immediately get poisoned again. Right. Then you lose a point in constitution.
You have to, So like what specters would if they hit you, you would lose a level and all the bonuses associated with the level.
Yep.
Or
and they could drain you down to 0, and then you turn into a specter yourself. Yep. So it was there was definitely a lot more one hit.
And that's permanent? Was that permanent? They just hit you and you went down a level?
The edge.
Unless you have wish spells laying around, and trust me, you didn't have wish spells laying around. That's what
so the transition from that to 5e, I mean, there was a learning curve, of course, because I had been away from TTRPG for 35 years. So, but I think Wizards, I mean, they boiled so much down to just the D20. Yeah. It's your key to most play. And then every other dice sort of has fancy ancillary, but the D20 is the key to the lock, and that became their iconography too. Like you show a D20, it just means D&D essentially. Yep. And then I think they learned that people just love their characters, and so let's make it harder to kill them.
Yeah, it's definitely harder to die in 5e than ever before. And I think 5e, one, I think it's particularly welcoming to new players, and two, I think it does a better job helping a new player, not come up with I think backgrounds, like the background system in 5e is one of the best things to help onboard a new player who doesn't necessarily feel like they've read every fantasy book is out there that they've got for a reference. So do you have like a favorite race class combo or what's your go-to if
when I came back to the game, I wanted to at least feel a connection to the game that I left. And so I created this character as a descendant of the character that I played when I was 11 years old. And so he's a half elf sorcerer with 1 level of ranger so that I could have a breastplate. And now I am a 9th level sorcerer, 1 level ranger. So I played elves. There's a couple characters that I've now just done for one shots and other campaigns. I have a half orc barbarian that I love named Olka Hunts, who is big Russian. Like, he's actually included in Satin's new book.
Oh, nice.
Her bard book. So he'll be canon in that. And then I have a Duragar paladin that I love, and I have a Ratkin rogue that I love named Bresh. She's just like Miss Brigsby from Secret of Nim, but much stabbier.
Much stabbier. We know.
But I've been playing this half elf sorcerer for a while, so I know the ins and outs of a sorcerer really well.
Yeah, that's an interesting class to jump into, because there really wasn't an analog to that in the first edition really at all. And
it's just again, like 5e goes, how do we make spellcasting easier? Sorcerer.
There you go.
Like, it's just I don't have to learn anything. It's just in my blood.
It's magic. I just know magic.
Yeah, I am magic. Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
So the characters you've played have had to deal with vampires, werewolves, ninjas, teenage super spies, Jim Gordon, mutants, the Winchesters, the Federation, time travelers. A ton of the things you fought are innumerable. Do you have a favorite? What's your favorite monster you like to drop into a campaign, or who's your favorite D&D foe?
That's a great question. The first big bad we killed with my party was a mind flare, because they will just mess you up. But we've fought the classics, and I think the beautiful thing about our DM is we're still playing in Greyhawk, and so our DM is he loves to like roll out a beholder and roll out we just had a showdown with a red dragon. Like, it was a game of wits, actually. It was quite amazing. You know what? I'm never gonna get tired of an owlbear. I'm never gonna get tired of an owlbear. I did a dungeon run game because I wanted to see people fight an owlbear in a child's bedroom. And so I figured it out story-wise, how while they're all downstairs eating dinner, they hear something upstairs. They go upstairs, they open the door, and there's an owlbear in the bedroom.
The owlbear in the cupboard.
Yeah. So I've had them fight Nalfashni, which will mess you up. And a good old-fashioned gelatinous cube. I'm a fan of the classic.
Yeah.
Like, throw me some goblins. Like, a lot of people shortchange some of these just classic badass villains. Zombies will mess you up. Like,
for sure.
Like I said, my D&D, I was not an anime kid. And so I was a Tolkien kid. And so my D&D sort of lives in that less where everything is fantastical.
Yeah.
And things are a little more Game of Thrones. Things are a little more grounded in that respect. And so when I picked, like, Green Knight is the perfect D&D movie for me, where it's like, you go, well, that's like sort of a medieval landscape. What is that? As opposed to everybody's magic with pink hair and whatnot. That's not where it lives in my heart. I cast no aspersions,
right?
But that's not where it lives in my heart.
Well, and that's how Greyhawk really was set up. Greyhawk was very much the Howard Conan, sword and sorcery. I mean, if you look at the pantheon, the Greyhawk pantheon has like 6 gods of death on it. It's a very different take than what you see.
Cold, it's stark, and it's a brutal world. It's like and again, it's all. I guess what I love about the game is, it's liquid and will fit any shaped decanter, and so there is for the generation that grew up on Final Fantasy and anime, that's their D&D. That's you, right?
Yeah.
So that's when you picture fantasy, that's what pops into your head. For me, it's the Rankin and Bass Hobbit, and it's it's all of the Errol Otis stuff, and it's the Bakshi Lord of the Rings, and even the Jackson Lord of the Rings, I think, captures that vibe. So that's D&D to me. And I'm happy to jump into all sorts of versions. And when I'm streaming with people and that's what they're bringing to the table, I will love indulging that. But when I'm sitting down to plan a campaign and to run a campaign, it's much more. If you haven't seen Green Knight, please watch it. It's an excellent. Witcher is very close to what D&D is to me as well.
Yeah, Witcher's so good.
I'm enjoying the
So
Witcher
good.
show. I have not heard of Green Knight, unless
It's
I just missed it.
Patel. It's a film that came out last year, and Dev Patel plays Sir Gawain in Arthurian legend. It's very atmospheric. It's very stark. It's very weather driven. It's like England or Scotland. It's very and there are fantastic creatures in it, but it's not like kind of like when True Blood suddenly went, everybody's a vampire or a werewolf or a fairy. I'm like, well, at a certain point, if everything is magical, then nothing's special. But I for me, I would go, I like magic being a rare and scary and powerful thing.
Right.
I like Harry Potter, where everybody's magic is not necessarily my jam. I'm glad it means so much to so many people. It just doesn't speak to me in the same way that the more Tolkien. I'm reading Six of Crows right now, which is excellent, or the Rothfuss stuff. All of that Name of the Wind stuff, like that's where my fantasy lives in my heart.
Yeah, so I'm a big Glenn Cook guy, Black Company, that series, and it's that kind of similar where magic is there, it's in the background, but it's not as front and center as
early Forgotten Realms, the Ed Greenwood stuff. The early stuff is there, and even the Dragonlance stuff definitely lives in that more stark place.
Yeah, Dragonlance is almost really a little post-apocalyptic when it starts with it, a little bit of a vibe. So you, speaking of one shots, you've done one shots for Jaspers and Extra Life and more. As a DM, to me, that's the most stressful thing to run is a one shot. You're like, man, I've got no to be continued. I've got nothing extra I can add to that. Do you have any tips for running a one shot? What's your strategy when you kind of come to play one of those?
So I've run more one shots than I've run ongoings.
Oh wow!
I was for probably 4 years. I was doing a one shot a month, crafting a new one shot every month. Because part of the joy for me is bringing it to people who've never played, and that's the best way to do it. Is you go, here's a beginning, middle, and end sampler platter. If you like it, then you can choose to continue. I always say a one shot. So if a campaign is Disneyland, you take the players, open the gate, they can go to the different lands and they choose their path. Then a one shot is a little more the Haunted Mansion.
Okay.
I actually know that one. There's a lot of rides I didn't ride, but that one was very slow.
You take them through it, but it's finite. I always think of one shots as it's a beginning, middle, and end. So the two things that I start with is I start with an environment. Oh, you know what? I'd love to run a desert adventure. I'd love to run a snow adventure. I'd run to a jungle or a swamp or something, and then go, okay, well then I'll just start breaking out some of the old books and then looking at the monsters that are in those environments. Then I figure out what the final event is. Like, what is the aria of the piece? Then I can build backwards. So if I go, it's going to end with closing the time gate, or whatever it is, right? And there's some evil gnome druid who is underground in a room of gems, because that you just start building and plussing and plussing and plussing. If I go, okay, well that's the destination. Now I can build the journey to that, and then go, well, a one shot, depending on, we'll say 3 to 5 hours, depending. Well, my buddy David Nutt said 1 encounter an hour. He taught me, he's like, just build 1 encounter an hour. So 3 to 5 big encounters. See how they all then will add up into, and they will be informed by the environment that I chose. And so if I know what the payoff is, and it's true with writing, then you're just building your structure of your thing. How do I get them into the story? Because if there's the old adage, if the end of the story takes place on a boat, you started in the desert,
right?
So that there's a place for them to get to. There's a journey, an inherent journey of like, how do we get from the deserts to the ocean? So they have to be traveling, they have to be moving through. So it often starts with the villain's plot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's really cool that you find the setting and the climax and then kind of work back from there.
Yeah,
that's definitely a good tip. So you've got a really deep, obviously improv background, both Second City and then I'll just a ton of other improv stuff you've done on your own with
in Austin.
Yeah, I see. I didn't see the Austin stuff. What did you do down here?
A lot of Out of Bounds, the Austin, the Improv Festival. I've done that, performed and taught there quite a bit. I brought a show that I called that's called The Doubtful Guests, which was we were Victorian spirits who were killed in a brothel fire, and are named sort of inspired by the Edward Gorey book, but pluralized.
Our guest at the end of the month is actually the Critical Hit Improv D&D show that's going on down here regularly. So that's what.
So I've done that, and I've taught improv there. I did a show called Mayfly there quite a bit. I've performed out of the Hideout, and just a lot of improv in Austin.
And I know this is kind of like asking a mechanic, what's one easy tip to make my car go faster? But is there like an improv tool that you could give to a role player to say, hey, look, I know a lot of times that particular characterization point can be tougher for new players. It can be harder for new players to step into it. Is there like an improv tip that you could give to a new player to help them kind of get into that mindset?
The biggest tool that you have is listening. I think, well, cell phones are death at a table. But listening really hard to your partners, because that is where the inspiration. See, we often think of what cool thing am I going to do? But in improv, it's how can I make my partners look better? So how do I include my partners and inspired by them? So the improv tool of listening and then heightening and exploring that which is coming from the table, the group, the DM, that just keeps you moving forward. We spend a lot of time, and I've done far more tabletop than I have streaming. And streaming's a different world. It's for an audience. And so there's a lot of, it's a different beast, but I'm more at home at the table. And as a DM, I'm constantly collecting information that's coming from my players so that I can spool it out and give it back to them and use it to pay off something down the road. You're just data mining, constantly data mining.
Every word canon will be used against them in the future.
Yeah, we have to watch out what we say.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just saying that because we're gonna pause right here while you guys write down the listening bit that he just said. Would you guys get out your notepads and write down the listening?
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. Jamie's not here to take notes, so that's not gonna happen.
So we're screwed now. I'm gonna have to make you guys watch this back as a training video.
I was thinking how I'm gonna jump off of my next vehicle. That's what I was thinking about.
I'm gonna admit that like just listening to Todd and the passion he speaks with all this is actually like it's like really cool. Like it's hearing all the different ways to really kind of think about this is actually really cool.
Yeah.
Well, good. Yeah, well, it's the best game in the world.
Don't start.
Name me a better one. Name me a better one.
Oh, I'm a video gamer. I listen.
They're not mutually exclusive. They're different experiences.
I'm classic Street Fighter 2 Tournament Edition. That's me.
So you like melee. You like getting into the scrum and fighting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He plays a rogue in every game out there.
There's
Destiny,
not a game out there.
he's a hunter. Wow, he was like, hey, Todd the Tiefling is a swashbuckler rogue. Like that is Harlan's got a type, and he's consistent with it.
Monk will be my type soon. Monk will
you got some real hardcore monk in.
My friend Cynthia Marie, who she's on Sirens on Gilding Light on Satine's show. She did a home game with us, and it was all monks.
Yeah,
which was really cool, because you sort of feel like you're in a movie very much, because you go, we are a team, and we are all operating sort of with the same tools. And as a DM, she tuned the adventure to support that. It was great.
Yeah, they just got done with an all monk fight, kind of the opposite side of it, and on the back of airboats in the swamp. So there was a little bit of a Burt Reynolds-y / kung fu situation going on.
That feels right.
That's about where we're at. Speaking of video games, well, let's jump forward. You just wrote or co-writer of a game called Forspoken that's coming out in the spring. Can you talk a little bit about what that game said? I saw your call out on Twitter for, hey, what's a real immersive RPG the other day, and I went in Wildermyth. Please check out Wildermyth. And I went, oh, he's asking for console. Wildermyth is PC only. But if you haven't checked Wildermyth out yet,
I don't have a PC. Check it out.
It's coming to Switch soon if you have a Switch.
So
it will be out on Switch soon. But it does something with character narratives that no other video games really doing out there. But talk a little bit about Forspoken if you don't mind.
So Forspoken is a game that's coming out in May for Luminous Productions via Square Ennix. It is a fantasy RPG, kind of open world. Trying to think what I can say. So I was brought into it with Amy Hennig. They have been working on it with a group of writers. Gary Whitta had assembled a writers group to world build, and they kind of brought stuff up, and then they fleshed stuff out, and then Allison Reimer, who was part of that group, then when they finished, they brought Amy and I in to sort of take what they had established and really shape it into story. And then Amy went to go work for Skydance New Media. She is Skydance New Media. She's the president of Skydance New Media. And then Allison came back from working with Gary, and then Allison and I continued to flesh the story out and flesh the characters out, and then write the script. So it has been a very, like, if you don't know how video games are made, it's a very fascinating process, because you are, it's like you're in you're in production, pre-production, and post-production kind of all at the same time. So it is a really fascinating process now. So that's all the logistics of it. But go ahead.
Yeah, Harland actually went to school for game design and took classes with Dave Arneson, no less.
Oh wow!
He's got some salty Dave Arneson stories.
I have a goblin named Dave in the corner, and then I have a drag.
That man cave is way bigger than I thought.
I have a dragon named Gary.
There you go. Yeah, you got to keep them in opposite corners from what I understand.
They are.
He was not too much of a fan of that guy
I can't imagine. But congratulations! What a cool thing.
Yeah, I was a video game programmer. On the cast, we have 3 video game programmers. So we was in industry. So yeah,
you know it. So you know the like the art informs the story, then informs the level design, which then the level design informs the narrative and informs the art. Like it's constantly it's a fascinating process. And I had started. I had Initiation by Fire with the Star Wars game with Amy, and so I was pulled into that, and so it's been a fascinating journey thus far.
Am I allowed to ask which Star Wars game?
The one that never got to come out.
Okay. Untitled, heavily speculated about Star Wars.
It was called Ragtag, Project Ragtag. It was the studio was. Oh wow! Why is my brain just died? It was for EA. I was brought in. So the quick version, I was hired as an actor on Uncharted 4 to play Sam, Nathan's brother, and that all got weird over at Naughty Dog.
Yeah,
and Amy was no longer working, and then I was no longer working on it. And then Amy was like, I have this opportunity. And I had sold a pilot to the Syfy channel. So I was already kind of digging into the world of science fiction and writing and whatnot, and kind of proving my stripes there. And then she's like, you know what? I have the opportunity to do a Star Wars video game for EA. Visceral was the studio. I have an opportunity. They did Battlefield, and they did Dead Space. So I had the opportunity to. Amy was being brought on to do this game over there, and she's like, "Do you want to come and co-write it with me?" And I'm like, "How quickly can I say yes?" Like the opportunity to like Star Wars. Star Wars is like I was 8 years old in 1977. Like I am sitting here because of Star Wars, and she knew that, and we had many conversations, and so she brought me on board to co-write that, and we co-wrote it for 3 years.
And Amy Hennig's was behind the Legacy of Kain and Soul Weaver, just some of my favorite PS1 games. And I was like, "Oh, who is this?" And I looked her up, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's who that is."
And
she's incredible.
She created the Uncharted franchise. Yeah.
So I could see why you would love at the chance. I was like, "Oh, she's that," and she.
Well, I was hired as an actor, and then she and I just spoke the same language while I was working as an actor, and then I had already, we talked story all the time. And she's very collaborative with her actors. And she was like, "Oh, I think this guy would be a good partner in crime." And we've now are collaborating on our 3rd game together.
Wow.
Can you talk at all about the Marvel game?
It's not what you just said. It is that.
Okay. Message received. All right. So, well, speaking of collaborations, then Mystic Libations, your collaboration with a former Disney engineer. I'm a big fan. Imagine, I'm sorry. I grew up in Florida, was a big Disney kid growing up, and Imagineers is just a cool title. And Epcot, like the promise of Epcot that never got fully realized, is one of the things that still haunts me as a kid. I was like, that was supposed to be the city of the future. Like when you see that scene in Iron Man 2, is it Iron Man 2, where the Howard Stark's got the Pavilion of the Future? That's Epcot, man. That is 100% a callback to Epcot. But so when I saw that in there, I was like, holy crap, Imagineer. But I'm a big fan of themed cocktail books in general. I've got Dungeon Meister. And when I was looking at this, I was like, okay, cool. I was like, oh shit, there's an adventure in here. There's NPCs, there's lore, there's magic items. It's a really cool product. What was the genesis and not bad drinks, by the way, too. The highly recommend tasty. The cantrip sipper. I've been sipping on it all show. What was the spark of that? Where did that come from? Kind of walk us through the history of that.
So Brandon Cleely, who is my co-creator on this, also known as Trader Brandon. He is neck deep in tiki culture. He was the art director for Trader Sam's, which is the tiki bar at Disneyland and Disney World. He also has a website where he sells tiki inspired glasses and shirts and things, and he's got a character, Trader Brandon, that he wrote comic books for, and his wife and he were big fans of 12 Monkeys. So he does this thing. He does like an Instagram live interview thing called Trader Brandon Transmissions on his Instagram page. He DM'd me and said, hey, would you want to be interviewed on this? I see that you're into a lot of nerdy stuff, and I'm into a lot of nerdy stuff. And would you like to be interviewed? I'm like, absolutely. So we get on the thing, we start talking, and we have a great interview, and we get along. And he plays Fireball Island, and it's a really fun tabletop game. And so he's a gamer guy, but he'd never played D&D. So I was like, allow me to introduce you. So after we got off the phone, we just kept the relationship going. And so I sent him the player's handbook, and I sent him some dice, and he sent me some Trader Brandon merch. And so we just begin this little bro fest, and then we started playing. I actually brought him to his first game, but it was all on Zoom because we're in the middle of lockdown at the time. And then I was like, you know what? We should make a cocktail drink so that to kind of connect us all, no matter where we are, we'll make a drink themed after this week's game. And he's like, I got all the Photoshop skills. I'll make a real cool looking recipe and you name it, and I will come up with the recipe. And we did it. We sent it out, and then everybody at the table was drinking the same drink. And it was kind of a fellowship moment. Like everybody was feeling so separated and disconnected because it was the early days of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, I think we're onto something. So we make 2 or 3 of these, and then after about the 4th one, I'm like, I think we have an idea here.
Yeah.
Let's keep going with this. I go, do you think we could make a cocktail book with these recipes? And he's like, you know what? Yes. In fact, I will enlist. And so he called his buddy Roy, who was a bartender at Trader Sam's. He's a mixologist, like serious, to craft all the recipes.
Cool.
And Brandon's wife is also knee deep in the culinary parts of Disneyland, so she did the drinks at Galaxy's Edge. Like,
oh wow,
yeah. So she is in it, and he himself has ridiculous page layout skills. So he's a very talented art director and artist. And I'm like, okay, well then I will generate all the narrative content. I will help flesh out the characters and write anything that's like written in the D&D realm, other than my buddy David Nett, who actually did all the statting for the NPCs and the magic items, and he did all the Bardic subclass that's in here. My buddy David Nett, who's my DM, he fleshed all that out. Roy did all the recipes. We found a bunch of great artists to do all the cocktails and to do like the character portraits and everything. And then I wrote the one shot at the back and made the maps. So it was a real collaboration. Then he's like, well, once we've assembled the team, let's kickstart this thing, because that's the greatest way to lick your finger and stick it in the wind to see if you've got something. Yeah. And lo and behold, we funded in a day, and then it just kept going. We pre-sold 1,000 copies, and then we made enough off the Kickstarter to be able to create even more copies. Then that led to Nerd Circus. I needed a platform that I could sell the books out of, and Nerd Circus also was part of my part of my my idle hands during COVID.
Yeah, Nerd Circus, man, is because I'm late 70s, early 80s, and the aesthetic of that website and the gear that you've got, I was like, it was just like, oh yeah, yes, please. It checked a lot of boxes right off the rip. I was like, oh, this is my childhood. This is perfect. Like the dice tower and the dice trap, the Moloch dice trap.
Let me see. I got one of them here. Here we go. So yeah, so I was a kid who grew up playing D&D in wood panel basements with orange shag carpeting. And so in the nerd layer, I put orange shag carpeting. We had our Atari 2600 in one corner, and we played D&D in wood panel basements, listening to classic rock, Styx in Kansas, and all of that stuff. And that feels like home to me. And so I wanted to create merchandise that came from that space, that felt like, okay, if I'm going to enter into this nerd merch site or playing field, I want it to come from my heart, and I want to give people a little bit of what I love about this thing, because D&D isn't just at the table. It extends into the aesthetics and the joy and what fun. So when I had a dice tower built, I wanted to be wood paneling with orange shag carpet. And so this guy out of Florida, Charles Thurston, made a dice box that had orange shag carpet in it and wood paneling. and it's shaped like a cigar box because if you were a kid then, that's what you kept all your merch in.
You cigar boxes and Crown Royal bags.
Crown Royal bags.
The original dice bag, man, was a Crown Royal bag for sure.
Royal bag. So that's why my bags are purple. So the whole idea of the website was to kind of harken back to that warm feeling that I always got from D&D, because it was just it's Stranger Things. It's sitting in the basement with your friends, rolling dice, and it just feels like home to me. And so when I was thinking about all the things that I've done in my career with like Supernatural and all of it, like, and then I'm a collector of toys, like my life is a nerd circus, like it is. And so it just felt like the right playful thing to do. And then my son, remember those old Burger King glasses?
Oh yeah.
Like the Star Wars Burger King. So we made Mai Tai glasses. My son designed them, and so it's like a little nerd master marching with all the toys that are in my thing. And my son designed the glass, and so because we serve Mai Tais in the cocktail book, I wanted to sell Mai Tai glasses, but I wanted them to feel like those old Burger King glasses. Yeah. So everything comes from that space.
I had the Star Wars set and then the Muppet movie set. The Muppet movies were such a big part of my childhood too. The Muppet movies
set. Were a SNL primer. I have all the Burger King glass
nice.
The original posters from those. So it's a sickness.
No, look, man, Satine Phoenix referred to you as the Willy Wonka of Los Angeles, and I was like, first of all, that's a pretty beefy compliment. That is a big hat to live up to, but God bless it. And seriously, that logo is incredible, man. When I saw that, I was like, that is and as you look through, and I mean, this is going to sound a little bit pandery, but it is what it is. As you look through Mystic Libations, you look through the website, you can see the care there, man. From just that orange that hits you right as you go to the website, to the layouts and Mystic Libations, you can tell, man, this isn't just, hey, this is let's try something out and do it.
Well, the truth be told is, like, I'm not doing that for a living.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, the only reason to make it was because I love it. And it came from absolute love. I am a collector of toys and dice and t-shirts. I only wanted to make stuff that I would own myself. And I wanted it to feel and have that vibe of what was the doorway into D&D and nerddom for me. Like when I was 11, and nothing's changed. When I was 11, talking nerdy shit with my friends and playing D&D, like I wanted to give that experience to people, so they at least get like, here's a little piece of my heart, and hopefully it'll liven up your table, and you'll have some fun with it.
Well, Mystic Libations, I think, is a fantastic, like, if you're going to do a pirate themed campaign, pick up Mystic Libations, pick up Secrets of the Salt Marsh. You have a fantastic setting and all the boat rules you could ever need, and mix up some mixed drinks and have those are like, if you're looking for a good DM tool set, those are the two I would go right off.
Well, that was the thing, is we wanted to, like, each chapter, which is like rum and tequila, gin and vodka, and then all your whiskeys. And each chapter is themed with a story narrative of how the characters in the book acquired those drinks. And so there is a whole chapter that's like a pirate themed chapter. And then it all pays off in the one shot at the back, which I don't want to give anything away, but it's a little Jumanji-ish.
The bard subclass is the arcane mixologist.
The arcane mixter.
If you're game, I'd like to spitball some other drink or bar inspired subclasses for other
classes.
Always game. So we're gonna run down the list here. The artificer. Thoughts on the artificer? I had distiller, possibly an arcane distiller would be good for.
Nice.
The barbarian. Any thoughts on a barbarian?
Barbarian is clear you're a bouncer, right?
See, I had fighter as bouncer, and maybe sports bar rowdy or soccer hooligan for barbarian.
Oh, so what kind of bar are we in? Where are we?
Well,
it's the Bloodthorn. The Bloodthorn is the bar in the book.
Okay.
So what's fun is that Moonshiner. Ooh, I like that. Well, because a lot of them are Outlanders, so they're living in the hills. So in Satine's book, my orc barbarian or half orc barbarian, he's now, because I've played him in streaming campaigns, but now he owns clubs in the Bardic city of Sylvana in Satine's book. So now he dresses like Prince, and he has like one of his tusks was broken off, so he gold plated it, and he's like a impresario now, and he owns like 3 clubs, but he has a battle axe called Grandpapa, which is made from the leg bone of his grandfather, and so he's never, and it stays under the bar like a shotgun. If he has to like take out his little barbarian ways, it's always there waiting for him. But instead, please sit, have a drink. Yes.
you had us at dress like Prince.
Yes.
He's got like, but like Prince, like not like the Around the World in a Day Prince with the cloud suit, more like the Purple Rain Prince, which I saw that concert. That tells you how old I am.
Wow.
Yeah. But with the Edwardian cuffs and the big purple jacket, like and the long jacket, like that Prince with the hobnail boots.
That's the exact image that came to mind, so I'm glad I got it right.
Good. Yeah, the one on the motorcycle on the poster. Yeah,
there you go. There you go. So let's we got Bard down already with our arcane mixology. What about cleric? What would be a domain for a bar related cleric?
Well, come on, tell me what priest isn't frequenting a bar. He's just sitting at the end. He's the Irish priest at the end. Bless you, my child. Bless you, my child.
Druid.
The Holy Spirit. Druids are the ones that are making all of like the craft beers, because it's all like this one's infused with rosemary. I'm like, keep it. You keep it.
I like that.
Good.
So we're doing bouncer for a barbarian. Where would you go with fighter?
Fighter security.
Okay.
Like a bouncer is letting you in and out of the door, but the fighter is like walking the floor like the pit boss.
Not bro dude, just with his fraternity.
I think if you're going to go frat bro, you might go paladin frat bro. We'll get there though. Monk drunken master is pretty much a given, right? Yeah, I think we can check that box. Paladin was one that I struggled between. Okay, am I going to go designated driver for paladin or for ranger? One of those two has got to be your designated driver. Either the paladins because they're holier than thou, or the ranger because they know how to get home from anywhere.
Yeah, the ranger's your designated driver.
Rogues.
Rogues
pickpocket.
Like where are they in the bar itself? Yeah, I don't know.
I got pool hustler.
Damn it! You beat me to it. I was definitely gonna say pool shark.
That's great. That or your guy who's doing the suspicious bar bets for free drinks.
It's in the way that you use it. Yeah.
Sorcerer, give it. So now we're in your home turf. Sorcerer, what would you do for a bar related sorcerer?
Well, they're running karaoke night because they're making all the pyrotechnics.
There you go. I had warlocks down as social influencers, because if you're making a deal with the devil, then yeah, you are an Instagram influencer.
Or they're the landlord.
There you go. Yeah. And then wizards. What do you do for wizards?
Well, wizards are keeping all the recipes.
Okay.
They got all the books. Yeah. So they're the bookkeeper.
So you wrote a long running web comic.
I did.
Spring Hill Jack, and I think did that just
Jack Spring Hill?
Jack Spring Hill. There we go.
Devil Inside.
That was a collaboration from the guy who was doing the artwork on Heroes.
So he did the hero. Dennis Calero is his name, and he did the Heroes webcomic, which is how we met. So being an old comic book nerd, to see myself drawn in a comic book, and he was a fan of a show that I was on called The Riches, and so when I found him on Twitter, I had used his drawing as my avatar on Twitter, and he's like, "Oh, look, some a-hole's using this guy's avatar," and then he's like, "Oh, he's the a-hole." So he came to town. He's based out of New York. He came to town, and he was like, "Do you write?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have this idea. about the devil quitting and going on the lam, like an FX type show, sort of Breaking Good. And he's like, well, he goes, I'll draw it, you write it, we'll put it on the web for free and see where it goes. And so it blossomed, and we would keep going back to Comic-Con and collect up all of the printed editions every year. And I would have fun people do the forward, like Dana Gould and Amber Benson and Doug Jones. They would do the forwards to the book. And then Universal optioned it for a hot second to try and pitch it as a TV series. We didn't sell it because it was right around the time that people weren't sure if horror was going to work, because it was literally the year that Walking Dead was premiering. Then Preacher came out, and it was like, oh, well, I guess we're not doing that. But we had a blind script deal, so that just meant, okay, they would pick a different idea that we would get paid to write the script for that, and they would own that script. We sold that script. It was a space show called Clandestine about a series of sort of space clan of like travelers, very much like the Riches, a clan of travelers who discover an empty Starfleet ship-ish, shave off their beards, put on the Starfleet uniforms, and pretend to be. So it's like, what if Han Solo had to pretend to be Picard, which was essentially the premise of it, and that was kind of the writing. I was writing on that when Amy enlisted me to start writing Star Wars.
Yeah, I stumbled across the kind of an early synopsis for that, and it was described as swashbuckling sci-fi, and I was like, oh god damn it, I want this. Please tell me that this was happening. But
I know. So what had happened was we had submitted our script and our series Bible on a Friday, and Monday our network executive was fired.
Oof, yeah.
So everything that he was developing went out the window. One show that was already picked up to pilot that got picked up to series right at the same time, 12 Monkeys. So it all worked out okay.
12 Monkeys is so good, and is one of those shows that I'm a huge fan of the original movie, and I went, okay, guys, you're going to remake 12 Monkeys. Let's see how, and I went, oh shit, it's good. Damn it, it's good. I got to watch it. And Deacon is just a fantastic anti-hero. I'm the guy that says the quiet part out loud character very much.
Zork Fox started Mystic Libations.
Oh, there we go, guys. I cannot recommend it enough. It is the drinks are fantastic. It's a nice.
Mail it tomorrow. I'll throw in some dice, Zork Fox. Whoever orders on this, you get a $15 bag of dice for free.
And they're lava lamp dice, so don't they're pretty cool dice.
Part of the theme.
Very well done. I think you guys got a little bit of a weird deal with the way that they put out the 3rd and 4th seasons, right? Didn't they do something weird with how they released?
Well, what they did was they ordered what was beautiful is they ordered seasons 3 and 4 at the same time.
Yeah.
And they knew it was finite. They said, okay, we're going to order season 3 and season 4, and you will be done. The series over. So the beautiful thing was the writers knew they were ending it, so they could shape everything to be able to land on a dime. And, not for nothing, whether I was on it or not, it's one of the finest series finales of all time. I don't want to spoil anything, but it is like one for the books, and I'm super proud to have been a part of it. So what they did do for season 3 is they're just figuring out release structure. Is they're like, we're going to release the whole thing in a weekend so you can binge it. But it was not a show people were used to binging, and it's a speculation show. So it's the kind of show that you want to watch an episode, get online, and then talk about it with your fellow 12 Monkeys nerds, and then wait to see what happens. But when you have a show that's bingeable, you kind of cut off the conversation because people are watching it on their own speed at their own time, and there's no room for conversation. There's just, oh, you got to watch that show.
Yeah.
As opposed to, holy crap, which is what they do on Disney Plus. They go, here's an episode of The Mandalorian. Talk about it all week until we give you the next week, which is just better release structure for certain shows.
Oh yeah.
And our audience was already conditioned to be part of that release structure. and so then the second for season 4, I think they did it like 3 episodes 1 weekend, 3 episodes 1 weekend, 3 episodes or 4 episodes.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. Yeah, you're in season 3 of Heroes, where you play legally distinct from Marvel Comics Multiple Man, who's one of my favorite X-Men, by the way, Eli. And I was like, oh man, Multiple Man finally gets his due. We just can't call him Multiple Man. So I was a big fan of that. Season 4 of Supernatural, my favorite Supernatural episodes are the ones where they do the weird shit. It's a good show, but when they do the weird Scooby-Doo themed or black and white monster movie tribute themed, such a freaking great episode.
It was a treat. It was a treat to step into those big shoes of Bela Lugosi. It was really fun. And I'll tell you, the mileage that I have gotten off of that, just in terms of the longevity of, I did that show 13 years ago, and people still talk about that episode because it was so unique, and it was a black and white episode, and I think it was also one of the first times you, on some level, sympathized with the villain. It was a very humanized villain. And so the writing on it was just chef kiss. And so the fact that I got to be part of that, and I had done a pilot with Jared Padalecki, I knew him when he was 17. So it was a old home week coming back to do that show, and then to be a classic Hollywood horror movie fan, to play Lugosi's Dracula, not just Dracula, but Lugosi's Dracula.
Yeah, it's such a unique look, man. And we actually do a Supernatural rewatch and D&D homebrew show for our Patreon content. And when we started doing it, because Jazz had never watched Supernatural at all before, Jazz, and we were like, wait, how has this happened? So we started doing it for bonus content.
That's fun.
And we realized, okay, he's going to have to watch ahead at some point, because the pace that we're doing him at, it'll be 2037 before we finally get all the episodes out.
2027 felt more accurate.
You also done a ton of animated voice work, including one of my favorite cartoons, Phineas and Ferb.
But I didn't do a ton of it.
No, okay.
There are people out there, Yuri Lowenthal,
that's true,
Nolan North, who've done a ton. I have dipped a toe or two.
So Phineas and Ferb, I think you're credited as additional voices. Did you ever get to ask, aren't you a little bit young to be dealing with a bulldozer?
Yes.
Did you ever get to deliver that line?
No, I am Jeremy's father primarily. And then I've with some nerdy teenagers and a bunch of things on that. That is and I had met Swampy at a backyard table read for something, and then we then met again because he's a surfer, and I was out in the ocean, and we're like, "Hey, we just saw each other in this thing." He's like, "You want to come in and start doing voices for Phineas and Ferb?" I'm like, "Yeah."
What?
Right now?
Is it like that over there?
Is it their studio on the beach? But yeah, so I just that was just one of those happenstance. You meet somebody in the water and blossomed into a couple jobs. It was fun.
Any future comic book work coming up anytime soon, or is kind of a
I have an idea for a graphic novel that I'm getting people to look at. I pitched a Swamp Thing Black Label to Vertigo before Vertigo collapsed. I mean, I'm a Vertigo boy, like Sandman is maybe Sandman and Lord of the Rings are my two favorite pieces of literature.
Yeah.
And I love all of that Vertigo stuff. And then I pitched to Vertigo, and I just sold another book, people. Thank you guys. Like I said, I'll send along dice with it. Oh, also, just while we're on this subject, you will also get a Spotify playlist of classic rock that you can boop. So
nice.
So you can listen to the music that I listen to when I'm prepping my D&D or doing my games. So yes, in answer to your question, I'm always interested in pitching comic books. and I do have an idea for one that I would like, that I've actually paid an artist to create pages for, and I've written a pitch deck for, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Any chance we're going to see you in the background of the D&D movie that's coming out?
Not a chance.
No, just thought I'd throw it out. I was like, man, they really should have, because there has been such a blossoming of visibility of actors and actresses that are into D&D over the last 5 years, 10 years. It's like when that movie got produced, I was like, please tell me that you guys are going out to the LA D&D community and bringing those people in at least a little bit. But it doesn't. But that's naive. I know that's naive. I know it is. But I hope you dare to dream. So
no, it's not like they were like going to like comic book nerds when they were casting Iron Man.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I think there's a few that make it into a couple of the Iron Man 2 and Thor 2. I mean, they're
well, no,
yeah.
John Favreau is a comic book nerd. I believe Taika is as well.
Favreau's really found his sweet spot as the kind of architect of new Star Wars, man. The Mandalorian and the Book of Fett, like that is.
I knew John back in the Second City days, so it's been fun to watch his trajectory. Yeah, it's been really fun.
Well, cool, guys. You got any questions before we throw it out to the chat?
I have one. You said that when you was getting back into D&D, your friend Yuri knocked on your door with the 5th edition starter kit, right? Do you play with him? Because you said you went to Vancouver, but did he?
I went to Toronto.
Did you get back to playing with him?
So Yuri is now also part of my ongoing, that is DM'd by David Nett. So I've been playing D&D with Yuri now going on 5 years.
Okay, man. I just want to make sure.
I made sure of it when we were putting together. And David actually already knew Yuri. So it was just a no-brainer that we were going to be doing this together. And I've known Yuri for 26 years, yeah. Since my New York improv days, yeah.
Same campaign over 5 years or different? Have you guys
same campaign?
Wow. That's impressive. That's
Yeah,
impressive.
I thought me and Anthony had a good one.
Pardon?
Was going. One of our other cast members and I have been playing in a campaign, or had been playing in a campaign for 3 years, and we finally wrapped that thing up. But 5 years and still going. It's impressive. Jesus.
Yeah, it's we see no reason to stop. I mean, it is, in this day and age where video games are so prevalent that it disconnects us in a way. It connects us in one way, but then disconnects us because you're alone on a couch with a headset. You're maybe talking to people, but the fellowship of gathering around a table and ordering a pizza and pouring some bourbon, getting out the minis, getting out the like just diving into it for 6-7 hours. It's just, there is just nothing like it.
Yeah.
Nothing like it.
Yeah.
And this is why I built the Nerd Lair for this purpose. It was like, it is a temple to Dungeons and Dragons, and for my friends to play in.
I know Manganiello. There we go. Thank you so much. I grew up in Florida and Texas. I don't know how to say anything correctly. He gets a lot of press for the Gary Gygax Memorial Dungeon, and it's definitely absolutely cool. But the kind of the real Rec Room vibe that when you look at the stuff that's in your back, I was like, this feels a little bit more authentic. You know what I mean? This feels a little bit more.
No, you know what? It feels right to you because it's what you grew up with, right? Yeah. Everybody, the game is so, again, it's so pliable, and I have yet. I mean, I know Joe, but I have yet to go to see that space. But it's glorious. Like it's he's got a huge, beautiful table, and they're very like Conan driven aggro, and so the fact that it kind of looks like a cathedral, it fits his personality. It's big and it's beautiful. I'm just a nerdy toy collector, and so I think there's room for all of it. And when people come to my space, it's that vibe, and I'm giving you a piece of my heart to play it here, and you go to Joe's and he's giving you a piece of his heart because these are his aesthetics. So it's just such a big playing field, and there's room for all of us.
And that's what I've described D&D as, a radically inclusive activity. You know what I mean? Because I think really at its heart, that's what it can be. It can be, there's no really wrong way to play it.
Yeah.
As long as you have a good session zero, everybody's playing the same type of game that they want to play.
Yeah.
There's so much flexibility in it, and who can participate in it and who can have fun with it.
Agreed.
It is, it's the best game I've ever played. And I'm super into it. So,
I have a quick question.
What you got, Mo?
So you like to play with very tangible stuff, like with pulling out the minis and all that. Do you use any computer aids? Like we use D&D Beyond on our campaign, and it really fastens the learning curve. I think.
I use D&D Beyond when I'm prepping. Mm-hmm. I will also use it to help people if they're just doing a one shot. I will use it to help them roll up a character. I'm a pencil and paper dude, and I came from the game with pencil and paper. I spend so much time looking at screens in my life and typing, that the one place where I love it to be analog and tangible and erase my hit points and write them in, that's just me being a grognard. I love it. But during the game, someone needs to look up a spell, do it. Do it. Use D&D Beyond. Use your thing. If someone at my table wants to use their iPad for their character sheet, please. I don't want to dissuade you from your experience. I love the pencil and the paper and the eraser and the I just don't want screens for me. Now, the irony being, so much the last 2 years I've had to play D&D on Zoom.
Yeah.
And I don't use like Roll20. I don't use virtual tabletops. I don't do any of that. When it comes to Zoom, it's all theater of the mind. I'm not propping up cameras to shoot the minis. I'm also not manipulating digital maps. It's all theater of the mind when I do Zoom. That's a very long answer to your very short question. No,
I like that.
It was a good answer.
It was a really good answer.
There is something to be said for the old school goldenrod 1E sheet that you would erase till it was almost pure white because you had to wipe out your hit points so many times and bring it back. But with my kids playing, having their character sheet on that iPad for their spell list has been such the best tool for my kids.
I will cut and paste all of my spells onto paper, print them up so that during the game as a player, I am turning pages. I want to turn pages. I don't want to swipe.
No,
it's good.
A real mage. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, but look, I am not allergic to video games. It's part of my income. Like, I have a PS5, a PS4, an Xbox 360, Xbox One, and a Switch. Like, I have them. I don't do PC, but I have all the game systems. I was playing Dishonored 2 right now. I love it. And I'm playing a game called Sable from last year, which is it's like playing a Mobius painting. It's amazing. So I love video games, but that is me on the couch doing a solitary thing. But when it comes to the fellowship around the table, I just like this. I like the toys. I like the stuff. Give me minis. Give me monsters. Give me Dwarven Forge. Give me. I got a smoke machine for my mini setup.
That's goddamn awesome. Let's be perfectly clear.
Yeah, there's a thing called the Fog Monster, which is a mini smoke machine that only runs on water. So it's not even you don't even need fog juice. It just makes a low rolling mist that fills out your caverns.
Do you have an LED so you can change the lights on that? I'm just getting really deep in the fog machine.
That's not code for his bong. Just to be clear, that's guys. Do you have any other questions for Todd before we throw it to the chat?
I've got hopefully one real quick one. Yeah. So through the process of this, you have filled up my browser with so many tabs for recommendations for kids to go and check out and/or purchase. Mystic Libations will definitely be on that list, but because I've got so much now, I'm gonna wait till payday. So I'll get all that there. Do you have any others at this point?
Yes, if you want to be a dungeon master, I highly recommend Sly Flourish's Fantastic Adventures, and I recommend this to you, your surly DM, Turner, because they're all one shots.
Oh, nice.
And what's great about them is they allow you to have the cadence of how a one shot spools out. He's got a couple of them, Fantastic Adventures, and then there's one called Grendel Root. They're both Lazy Dungeon Master books are fantastic too. So if you want to learn to DM, or if you are DMing but like want to get your mind around one shots, the Sly Flourish stuff is fantastic, really fantastic, to give you the shape. And then, so that's how I started. I started doing Fandelver for my daughter, but then when I started doing one shots, my buddy David Nett said, grab Sly Flourish, or he gave it to me. And then I just started running them, and then slowly started to homebrew within them, till eventually it's like, what is it? There's an old Greek myth about the boat, but it's also Grandpa's axe. At some point, it stopped being his adventures and started completely being my own, because as I slowly started swapping out his stuff for mine, but I still use them for references. But if I was going to say if you were going to make one purchase right now, get that Art and Arcana book, just to have for your collection and read it cover to cover. It is so wonderful and joyful and affectionate, and really informative for anybody who takes this hobby seriously.
So the order of my list right now is the Arts and Arcana. That was already there before you said that last part, but that was the first thing I'm buying. Then it's Mystic Libations. Then I think I'm going to go with the Fantastic Adventures after, and then as soon as Forspoken is available, I'll be getting Forspoken.
Yeah, Forspoken will be out. You can pre-order it now, but it'll be out May 22nd or 24th. Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's it's funny because I've written television pilots that didn't get produced. I wrote a video game that didn't get made. I co-wrote Suicide Squad 2 before James Gunn took over the project and did his own script. So I've had a lot of wonderful experiences writing, but this will be the first time I think a big thing of mine is hitting the marketplace that I had my hand in. Look, we are just one small part of you guys know, you're video game makers, one small part of a big machine, but it'll be very exciting. And we just wanted to write something wonderful and fun, and my experience in fantasy, bringing that to the table. Yeah, so exciting. It's all exciting, but yeah, start with Art and Arcana. That and Kyle is such a good person, and the Whitwers are wonderful, and John Peterson knows what he's talking about. It's a really wonderful book.
Cool. Thanks for the recommendation, sir.
Gang in the chat, we are coming up on time, but does anybody have any questions for Mr. Stashwick before we wrap up here, gang?
Ask away. And if you have the extra money, get the special edition of Art and Arcana, because it might not be too much more now, just because Amazon tends to reduce prices of things. But the special edition is beautiful, and it comes with a lot of lovely guga.
So Zork Fox asks, have you ever had a group fail during a one shot or campaign, and how did the players handle it, and how did you handle it?
There is no failure in D&D. There's only good story.
Yeah, Turner.
So it's so funny. The most controversial tweet I have ever done, in saying that this was a controversial tweet, is I wrote, in D&D, bad rolls equal great story. And I got pounced on.
Really?
Pounced on by the Twitter sphere, like, well, that's not actually baked into the rules. It is in other RPGs, but I'm like, actually, and I took a picture of the Dungeon Master's Guide where it says so. But I said, because if there aren't bad rolls, it's like, well, Frodo got the ring and threw it into the volcano. The end.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like, there are nothing but bad rolls all through more all through. Like it is nothing but bad rolls.
So many insight check fails.
So many insight check. So he gets bested by a spider. Like thank God he had a healer among them, and he had a small look. Samwise Gamgee is the MVP paladin of that story, but so there is no failure. There's no failure. Even death is good story.
Yeah,
for sure.
There's no failure.
Yeah, guys in the chat.
Have you? Let's see. How do you encourage players that might have a hard time getting into RPing?
Well, look, everybody approaches the game from different places. You know, when we were kids, we didn't RP. We would say what our character was saying.
Yep.
I go up to the guard and I ask him about when the fishmongers come and go during the day, as opposed to, dear God, I have but a question for you. Like, we didn't do that when we were kids.
Yeah.
And so the RPing thing is all a matter of taste. I do it when I stream, and I do it more as a DM. I will do more voices. As a player, I don't RP at the table much. So I don't want to encourage. RPing is a broad thing, right? RPing just means making decisions based on your character and their background and stats. Like your character is as much their stats as they are their background, and let the dice decide the fate of your choices. So the RP can mean a lot of things. It's not cosplay necessarily. It's not dialects. It's not improvising scenes. It can be,
right?
But role playing just means I'm not Todd Stashwick in this game. I am Perry Blackwing Bly, Sorcerer Ranger. That is a role that I am playing, and playing by rolling dice. So a lot of people think it needs to be improv theater. It doesn't. It can be whatever your group is comfortable with, or whatever maybe this player wants to do a voice and do a scene with me. And look, I'm down to do a scene with anybody. I'm an improviser. I'll go tie to tie with a character with them all day long. But if this guy is not wanting to do voices, I'm not going to make them uncomfortable, because I want them to enjoy themselves.
Nice.
Yeah, we 100% on the same page. We had an entire episode about there's no wrong way to play Dungeons and Dragons, and that's very much the guy who shows up into the table in full Elizabethan dress, to Harland, who won't even admit he plays D&D, even though we're on a podcast trying to promote that we play
and celebrate everybody's playing style.
Yeah, absolutely. How was doing the Kim Possible movie? Mr. Bible Pants asks.
It was the time of my life. Because here's the thing. I had just come off 4 years of basically performing in a submarine whispering. When you do science fiction shows, it's so funny because you'll be at science fiction shows doing like craft services, and you're all like just joking around because we're all loud actors, and then they yell action. It's as serious as a heart attack because it's a post-apocalyptic environment. And I came from Second City, and I wanted to be like, I was up for Saturday Night Live in '95. Like, that was the route. So suddenly to be able to like chew scenery and be huge and Drakken, like, oh, I was in heaven. And it was like comedy. And then Taylor Ortega could not have been a better like improv partner. She is UCB, and she is just one of the funniest, naturally funniest performers I've ever been able to have the honor of playing with. And we got to improvise and come up with bits and just be silly children, and it all wound up on screen. And I got to be a clown and be like a Batman villain, like from the old series. It was so much fun, and whether you're a fan of the show or not, it's sort of Austin Powers for kids. It's on the Disney Channel, Disney Plus, the live action Kim Possible movie, and we had so much, and the kids were great. Sean Jim Brown and Sadie Stanley, Sierra. It was It was so fun, so much fun,
Cool.
and it
Gang,
shows. Like you can tell we're having a blast.
And later on you got to actually play an actual Batman villain in Gotham, which was its own whole level of wacky, which was a
Dude,
Gotham.
like I have ha 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 and a bat symbol. Like
Nice.
I bleed for the bat. And there was just one night where I was in the Bronx shooting one of the scenes. There was a sort of like fight club that was happening, and my brain was like, this has happened one other time in my life where I'm like, I'm in Gotham City.
Mm-hmm.
They shot that in the Bronx?
It is. They shot that in the Bronx. So it was that scene anyway. But I was sanctioned. Like it was blessed by Warner Brothers and DC that where I'm standing right now is Gotham City.
Yeah.
And the other time that happened was when I was working on Enterprise, and I had a lirpa and ears and brows, and I'm standing on Vulcan. Like, that's crazy town.
Yeah.
So a little boy from Chicago has been to Vulcan, he's been to Gotham City, and he's been to Skywalker Ranch. So,
Nice.
like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Well, cool guys. I think we're going to wrap up. Todd has been very, very generous with his time. We appreciate you hopping on. We absolutely.
When do we start? When do we start? Or when is this begin? I thought we were just shooting shit.
Hey, look, we'll keep going, my man. We will keep going if you want to hang out. We normally kick off at 9:00, but I mean, I will go into more 12 Monkey stuff and throw more heap of praise on Deacon.
We nerd hard. 12 Monkeys, man. What a show, right? If you haven't watched it, folks.
Seriously, guys,
watch it.
If you have not watched
Hulu.
it, there time travel as a show is hard to do. To stick the landing on a time travel show and to go into some deep, weird, really cool time travel stuff, that show pulls it off. And you get to do, and I can't really talk about it without spoiling it. You get to do something in such a unique way with a character where one thing happens and then you brought it up in one of your other interviews, like you very rarely get to do this and then follow it up with this as a character with an entrance.
It was like the arc of this character was huge. Like where you meet him and where he ends is such a strongly written arc that it was an honor to play it, and also leans into my wheelhouse. Like he's described as a sociopathic Han Solo, and Terry Metalis and I, we speak the same nerd language, and so there would be moments where we'd be doing a scene. He's like, this is just he's like Venkman this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I know exactly what he means. What he wants, a little Venkman in this. He's like this one's a little indie. Just kind of rattle this stuff off like indie, like. And so it was to work with those writers, Sean Tretta, Chris Monfett, to work with that character, that cast. It was one of the most special times in my life, and it shaped everything after.
It's a really cool show. It takes some really big swings and pulls them off. And I know like Negan is the anti-hero that is, on Walking Dead. Deacon Negan in my book, guys, just for the record.
And we were out first.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're looking for a good anti-hero that out Negan's, go Deacon.
So I will end with this quick story. So I'm at Comic-Con, and I was there for 12 Monkeys, and I was on a rooftop, and I was there with another actor who I'd worked with 2 other times in my life, and we're having a conversation. Like worked with him a couple times, so I hadn't seen him in like maybe 8 years. We're having a conversation. We're about 5 minutes, 10 minutes in the conversation. He leans over and he goes, "So, Walking Dead, man, good job."
Ouch.
So at that moment I realized he thought I was Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and I have to gracefully now go, No. A, I'm on 12 Monkeys, and B, I'm not who you thought you were talking to.
Oof. Yeah, that's painful. That is painful. Well, we're going to wrap it up, guys. I'm going to we end the stream as abruptly as we start on this show. So make stream end now. Thank you.
Close it.
Exactly. We're just start hitting the buttons and hope it ends. Todd, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Guys, everybody who showed up, thank you for showing up. Thank you for buying the book on stream and showing
thank you guys so much
how great of fans you guys are. We have some incredible patrons. Remember, we hit 30. We will have Jamie read Todd's IMDb resume in full while folding towels, dressed as a Zelda character. Not saying Link, not saying Zelda. We'll see how it pans out. So you can make it happen. So guys, thanks again. Make stream